Hello and welcome to One Controller Pro Podcast, episode 41. Benjamin Yoder here again this week. I did not put out anything this week. This week has been very slow for me. I did that stream on Thursday, but otherwise I largely ended up playing a good chunk of Battlegrounds and more Tokiden 2. And I haven't done much else. I did not touch that video since I mentioned it last week, so things are going great. I pretty much haven't done anything productive outside of just work. And I've been taking better care of my eating self. Not eating myself, but eating better. So that I did do that. Life was slightly improved, but that does not make up for the laziness I had during the week and getting anything done. But one thing I did start. I don't know if I started last week or this week. I can't remember. I mentioned that Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet. I've talked about it a lot, mainly because, as I've said many times over again, part of the team who worked on Freedom Wars is the ones developing that. It's the DIMPS side of things. And so that's really my biggest draw with Fatal Bullet. But I'm not new to the Sword Art Online space. I watched the original anime at some point. I thought it was okay at the time. And I think like everyone else, or like most people, the second half of that season was I don't know if undesirable is the right word, but but it wasn't as interesting as the first season. It's very strange. It's like they go to... So if you don't know the premise of Sword Art Online, essentially it's like all these people get trapped in an MMO where if they die in the game, their whole brains get melted or whatever. So basically these people... I forget how many people are living in the MMO at that point. And so what I think is super fascinating about Sword Art Online is that it's basically forces these people to... Because like it's not just one person stuck in the game, it's like everyone is stuck in the game. It basically forces them to build up like a society essentially within the game, and you just kind of learn about some people's like everyday lives within the context of this video game. Strangely, where individual players have like cooking and blacksmithing skills, so you don't have to. And in a lot of ways, this is like the concept of original Final Fantasy 14 1.0. You don't have to be a fighter really. You can contribute to everyone by just being a blacksmith or something like that. You don't have to be a somebody who's at the front lines fighting, and so they essentially make this society within this MMO, and I always really liked that aspect of it. It's a bunch of people throwing together their lives within this one context, working towards a singular goal. And then once they get out of the game, they're essentially that reality is kind of destroyed for them, and they have to go back to the real world and then find their place in the real world. That's the concept I liked about Sword Art Online. I can't say I like the characters as much, but anyways, that's the basic concept of Sword Art Online. Essentially halfway through the series, though, they kind of get kicked out of the MMO early and end up playing in that. Well, some of them get stuck in another MMO, and it's a really weird thing. I don't know. The second part of Sword Art, I don't need to explain it. Anyways, so there's this game called Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. Let's look this up real quick. Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. That looks right. So yeah, Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. It's essentially both a remake of a PSP game that was put out only in Japan, and then also a new game. So what I find really fascinating about Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment is that it actually and I've written like 3 articles on Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. It actually it like converts that whole lifestyle MMO into a video game, and then also it makes a lot of it puts, because it's about like also the world and all the people in it. There's a lot of almost like a return home kind of feel to everything. So you go out to your dungeons and you come home and then you kind of relax at home. I will say most of the characters and the interactions, specifically in Hollow Fragment, are not great because it's just constantly pining for Kirito's attention. It's just one of the harem series, so it's the one guy Kirito and everybody loves him for some reason, even though he's kind of generic. I guess that's pretty standard for like a harem. Usually he's a pretty generic guy, except for he's perfect at everything because anime and video games. I don't like this idea that like, oh, because you're a really good player in a video game, you succeed really well in real life kind of stuff. That's a whole nother topic. Anyways, I'm kind of getting lost at where I'm going with this. But I played Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. I thought it was super interesting for a few reasons. One, because it's a remake and a new game in one. You would think this would be like, okay, well, you play the original game first, or they let you skip to the final game. Or the second game if you already played the PSP game. But no, they like cram them together instead, so you're actually playing two games at once almost, and there's like different styles of level design and progression between the two games. It's very bizarre, and it doesn't work very well. But it's kind of fascinating to see them say, hey, instead of just like making it so you play through the first game first and then you play through the second game, let's just integrate them into one world. I don't know if I'd say it was very lazy in how they did it. Maybe it was lazy in execution, but it was ambitious in terms of the concept behind it. Of like, we're going to make these two games one, and try to blend them together in a way. That being said, the Hollow Fragment was the first time the original game was ever released here. I think it's called Infinity Moment. Yeah, it looks like it. The original PSP one's called like Infinity Moment. And so I definitely have like a history with Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. It's such a broken and janky game at times that it cut my attention for 75 hours, despite being very grindy and repetitive, and like some of the dullest boss and game level design I've experienced in an RPG in a long time. But the little elements here and there, really enjoyed it. If that makes no sense, I highly recommend reading my articles where I talk coherently about this stuff. I might link the two biggest ones in the description, because I feel like I'm doing a bad job of explaining this. So, anyways, that was a long way to say that I've been watching Sword Art Online 2. I wasn't really expecting a lot from it, especially with how kind of a mess the game was, and then also how the second part of the first season was not great. But I'm actually really liking it. I don't really know why, because the elements from the original first part of Sword Art Online that I really liked, where they're creating a society, don't really exist anymore. So I don't think there's a through line between what I like about the original Sword Art Online and what I like about the beginning part of Sword Art Online 2. So I'm still trying to figure that out, and I don't really know. My gut tells me there's something there that I really like. Basically, in the new one, it's like nobody's stuck in the MMO, but there's a guy that goes around and kills people within the MMO, and then they die in real life. But it has this like weird like PTSD element to it, where the Kirito, who was in the original Sword Art Online, killed people in there, and he's kind of trying to deal with the burden of having killed someone, but it's like really awkwardly placed in because the second part of the first season never really touches on that. So it's like suddenly he's traumatized by something that he really didn't have a problem with for a little while. But hey, I don't know. Their whole justification is that he pushed it out of his memory so he would forget, essentially. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of preparing for Fatal Bullet by watching this by watching the anime series. I kind of want to. It was important to me for one big reason. And maybe this is the point I was trying to get to in the first place, was that Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment actually kind of restructures the story of the anime. I don't know if compared to, I assume the light novel's the same, but the same. I assume the light novels are the same as the anime. But Hollow Fragment actually completely gets rid of that second part of the anime and then wraps all the story and plot from that into the first part, the stronger part of the of the series, and it makes it more like, I would say, a story that feels more whole. It almost feels like Sword Art Online was scared it was going to get canceled or something, and so they tried to wrap it up as quickly as possible. I have this followed a lot of manga where all of a sudden things wrap up and they just kind of end in a way that don't feel intended and more feel done because, hey, you have 5 chapters to finish this, and so everything has to fall into place as quickly as possible. So Hollow Fragment really just kind of like makes it so you play the entire story of that original part, or at least I would consider to be the entire story. And I would say it's a better story than the anime one. Too bad the localization is terrible, and there's a ton of filler. So there's a lot of cutscenes you're gonna be sitting there, and everyone's just gonna be complaining about Kirito not loving them enough because they need to love him more. Sword Art Online. That's my general Sword Art Online talk, I guess. Hopefully you got something out of that. I don't know if you did. I would not recommend playing Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. Well, I would. We need to sit down and have a conversation if I'm gonna recommend that to you, because there's a lot of bad and a lot of good. Read my articles. That's a plug, right? Read my articles. I feel bad saying read my articles, but I genuinely think that you'll get a better idea of what I'm trying to say by reading those articles that I spent a lot of time on. I was actually very happy with how they turned out. I think the first one in particular, I went through a lot of revision on. I didn't think it was going to turn out as well as it did. And then the second part kind of came out of almost necessity, because the article was kind of all over the place in the original one originally. And I had to tear the whole thing apart. And then when I did that, I essentially removed all story elements from Sword Art Online, because I really wanted to talk about the game design of the world and how they were like crammed together, how they were. And the story isn't really affected, oddly enough, but maybe it's because the interactions are so frivolous. And then so any like chance that they might accidentally, overlap each other, the two stories overlap each other in a way that would conflict. I think they just don't have those characters in the new story or in that part of the new story to kind of like prevent anything weird from happening. But yeah, I'm just gonna shift gears really hard. I forget why. So I use Feedly as my news source, and maybe a good way to lead into this is that, and explaining, I haven't really had too much I wanted to talk about news-wise probably the last month, it feels like at this point. I have a Feedly where I just pull in a bunch of articles from a bunch of different websites, Go Nintendo, VG Charts, US Gamer, all that stuff, and I just try to go through there and pick out something I'd want to talk about. And unfortunately, the last handful of weeks, I've come up short. And I was remembering the other day that I really liked this website called Senpai Gamer, and it used to be in my Feedly feed, so I was like, I haven't seen a link from their site in a long time. And I think Senpai Gamer doesn't exist anymore. I think they might have died in August of, well, not, there's not a person known as Senpai Gamer, and they did not die. I'm talking about the website. I think they may have ceased operation in August last year. Their website seems to go to like a dead link, and as far as I can tell, it's been that way since November, so they're probably not coming back. And the last article I saw posted on Twitter was like August something. And that makes me really, really kind of sad. The reasoning being is that, like, if you want Japanese game news, there's definitely a lot out there in terms of, from a Western perspective. You see Silicon Era. Silicon Era is a great site for that stuff. I don't like their website, like the actual functionality of their website very much, but I really like their content for the most part. But I would say Silicon Era is still very focused on what does this mean for a Western audience? Like, we're bringing this news over because we believe it's beneficial to you as a Western game player to know this information with the context of you probably import it, or eventually this may get localized, or there's some kind of relevant reason you'd be into this. But there used to be a website, and I think they died in like 2013, called Andrea Sang, that I used to really like, and Andrea Sang was a really solid website. It basically would take Japanese game news, and I believe they had basically they translated all their articles. So I think there was a Japanese article that'd be written, and then the English article would translate that Japanese one. I think that's how it worked. It's been a long time, so I could be wrong. Essentially what you got was Japanese video game news, like unfiltered, not through Western game eyes, presented in English. And I always really loved that, because it's just like, this isn't about what's important to me. It's about what's important to a Japanese audience, and that's what I'm going to learn the most from. So, inevitably what happens is it's mostly like mobile games and stuff, and eventually Senpai Gamer kind of came and took its place, just not to nearly as uh, quality. There was not nearly as bar quality. Like most of it seemed like Google Translate articles and stuff like that. It was very broken, or like maybe it was someone who had English as like a second or third language that just didn't read well or anything, but it still was Japanese news content presented in English. And you obviously can go to like a Japanese website and Google Translate it, but I think there is a even with Senpai Gamer, there was a level of quality to the writing that made it to the point that you could understand it, even if it was kind of a nightmarish mess of like grammar and stuff. And I don't know any websites like that now. Now that Senpai Gamer's gone, and I don't know. If you know one, let me know. It's hard to find that kind of content these days, I feel like. Just like an unfiltered Japanese news feed, essentially. But hey, maybe I'll start doing Google Translate stuff, or maybe I'll just follow more Japanese websites. Right now, I just think I forget what it's called. I can pull it up here. But I also used to follow Senpai Gamer in that Feedly feed, but obviously that's gone now. So the other one I follow is, I follow Inside, but it's not on the right feed, so I gotta fix that. I also follow, where is it? VG Charts, Giant Bomb, US Gamer, Silicon Era. It's something, Girls something. Dang, I can't find it right now, and the page is not loading correctly. But anyways, I follow this one thing called Girls something. Here we go. Where are the handsome boys? Because it's mostly reporting about handsome boys news. Handsome boys news, where are you? Oh, I'm having a hard time finding anything. Oh my gosh. Girls Style. I followed them on there, but I don't know if I've ever had an article that I really liked. I think I talked about Doubt the other day or something like that. Some mobile game that I found out about through Girls Style. But yeah, I need to find more websites that report on Japanese content. We are behind schedule. It's time for the fortune cookie. We're going to open that cookie. Final Fantasy XI, a Mughal coup d'etat. I can't. Anyways, what this is, you definitely recognize the Final Fantasy XI part. You might not recognize a Mughal coup d'etat. Coup d'etat. That's probably what it is, a pun. Coup d'etat. On coup d'etat. Coup d'etat? Coup. I don't know English. Well, I guess maybe it's not English. Anyways, look it up. Final Fantasy XI, a Mughal something. What it is an add-on pack. So Final Fantasy XI went through a period of time where after Wings of the Goddess released in 2008, there's a few problems that happened. One, I would assume, is I feel like the player base was shrinking after Organ came out in 2006, 2007. I'm not sure where they were going. I think maybe subscription MMOs were kind of falling out of vogue in general. But you had a shrinking player base for Final Fantasy XI. And then also the budget was kind of getting. So there's a space budget and then like the actual money budget. It's hard for us to say what the money budget was. But the space budget of the PlayStation 2 was preventing any kind of like major updates. So the PlayStation 2 has I believe it's a 10 or 20 gigabyte hard drive. I think it's a 20 gigabyte hard drive. And I think Final Fantasy XI had 10 gigabytes of it dedicated to itself, and it had filled up those 10 gigabytes. And they were trying desperately to get access to more hard drive space from what I recall. And so there's a lot of this add-on content that essentially reused previous areas, and then in a lot of cases previous characters and stuff like that too, and tried to tell a story about characters that weren't necessarily like a main plot line. So you had one about Aldo, my favorite Final Fantasy XI character. Aldo's story is kind of bad though. And there's one about Shantoto, which is the most popular Final Fantasy XI character. And then there's the Couple d'Etat, which is essentially your little Mog house, which is like your house you'd go back to change your equipment or like switch your inventory around. Had a Moogle in it, and that Moogle had its own story. There was little bits of story beforehand in terms of increasing the size of your Mog house. So like if you want to increase your spaces from 50 in your Mog house to 60, you do a little story quest, and it was very, very basic of just like, oh, I need to fix something in this house, essentially. or like just bring me these 2 items and I'll make your thing bigger. And so this almost felt like an expansion of that. It made this whole story about a about like this gangster Moogle who is like trying to shake down your Moogle. and like your Moogle gets like trapped in a house filled with dead ghosts and spirits for a while. And then eventually, I mean, you still have to keep a Moogle in your house. So this Moogle like leaves your house to go do stuff and gets like trapped in places. And he's like, "Don't trust the Moogle that's in your house right now. He's a doppelganger." Just because they have to keep a Moogle in your house in order for you to do stuff. Yeah, it's a really weird side thing. But so basically, there's these add-on packs that were just kind of interim between a period of time. If Final Fantasy XIV didn't fail, I think those add-on packs probably would have been the end of content updates for Final Fantasy XI. The reason I think Final Fantasy XI ended up with a new expansion after those add-on packs, A, is I think they finally got access to the more hard drive space, and then B, they after Final Fantasy 11 or 14 kind of failed, I think they were trying to prop up Final Fantasy 11 as like a place for people to return to. So by releasing that expansion or like building that expansion at the time, if Final Fantasy 14 didn't turn around, they could hopefully grab back some of their MMO player base because, Final Fantasy 11 was still pretty popular at the time. Final Fantasy 14 2.0 completely changed everything around for that brand, for Final Fantasy 14 brand, but nobody had any idea that would happen. So I think they were just preparing for the worst, saying, okay, if Final Fantasy 14 2.0 doesn't take off like we want it to, here's the other MMO for people to get back to. So we keep that player base, because Final Fantasy 11 is a very profitable game. I don't know if it is still now, but at the time, 5 years ago, it was considered the most profitable Final Fantasy 11 or Final Fantasy ever. And, maybe that's changed with Final Fantasy 15, because the difference between like a Final Fantasy 15 and any other Final Fantasy before it is, it's a service-based game in a lot of ways, like, any other video game now. It's constantly being updated with content that you can buy and purchase, and there's, just a ton of content. And I think I read a news story today that they're going to continue to support it with DLC until 2019. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Final Fantasy 15 in some ways is a live game. It's being presented in DLC packs, kind of like a Destiny, maybe? Maybe that same kind of concept? I don't know if I might be stretching. But, 15 is going to continue to make money right now. Previous Final Fantasy before that couldn't do that. So 15 might be the one that actually breaks, maybe the most profitable Final Fantasy. Or maybe Final Fantasy 14 will. Maybe it already did, and I just don't know. But yeah. Final Fantasy 11 Moogle Coupe d'Etat. It's I wouldn't recommend it, really. It wasn't very good. All those add-on packs are not very good, I will tell you that. If you're desperate for Final Fantasy 11 content, maybe, but honestly at this point I would say maybe just go play Another Nation's Quests. Because most of the rewards and content from those add-on packs are junk. Or it's like repurposing. So like there's one where it's like, oh, you're gonna have a level cap of 30 and you have to go climb this tower that you climbed back when you were level 30 forever ago. It's almost like a nostalgia ride in a lot of ways. It's like, hey, go do this garbage from forever ago that you used to do. Now you're gonna do it again. And for an old Final Fantasy level player that might be like, oh, I'm so nostalgic, I remember doing this when I was 2004 when I had to do that, but in reality you sit down and look at it and like, this is kind of a pain in the ass is what this is. It was a pain in the ass back then too, but rose tinted glasses. That's gonna be it for this week. I feel kind of all over the place this week, but I felt like I had a lot to talk about, which I think was important, because last week I felt like I had nothing to talk about and I was kind of lost at what I was talking about, where this time I felt like I had so much I was talking about that I was lost at what I was talking about. So there we go. Hopefully next week, maybe I should have just made like an episode dedicated to Sword Art Online, or have made it, but it's too late. All full of regrets. This episode is full of regrets, but I feel relatively happy about it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna try to get some stuff done this week. No promises. I also want to play more video games too, but I kind of feel like I'm in like a little weird interim period right now. There's some stuff I definitely need to work on, but it's just gonna matter on where I spend my time, and hopefully I spend my time in the right places. We'll see. So thank you guys so much. I will be streaming again on Thursday, 7 p.m. PST. If you want to come out, check that out. I think the new tactic is to play like an hour and a half or 2 hours of Thousand Arms, and then play like 30 minutes of another game, a random game in my collection. I play a lot of different games, and I have a lot. I don't have a ton that I can present right now because I'm still kind of battling with my capture setup, and then a lot of my games are still back at home in Georgia. I'm buying some shelving so I can hopefully start getting a lot of that stuff shipped out here, because it's very frustrating not being able to reference that material when I need it. So we'll see, but I think that's going to be the plan for now, is play an hour and a half, 2 hours of Thousand Arms, and then jump over to another game for like 25, 30 minutes. It's going to be, some of the games aren't going to present very well. I feel like the game I played this Thursday, I didn't know what I was doing, unfortunately. So I kind of just was like, I don't know what's going on here, but we'll see. I might, I won't say what I'm thinking about next week. Make it a surprise, a good surprise for all of us. A good time. I might have to prepare it though, because I'm not sure. I would like to have a save file somewhere decent, because the game starts kind of bad. And I don't want to just show the bad parts that everybody knows and loves. No, everybody loves them. All right, that's it. I'm done for this week. It's almost 30 minutes. Goodbye.